With over 25 years as a corporate executive, consultant, and entrepreneur, John Naples knows what it takes to drive performance and deliver results. Whether it's personal development or practical training, John unveils proven strategies that yield sustainable change and lasting impact. Equipped with over 300 presentations under his belt, John introduces new methods and insights that inspire others to reach the next level. John's clients include AT&T, Honeywell, Johnson & Johnson, the Cleveland Clinic, and Oxford University Press. John has been published in Businessweek, Entrepreneur Magazine, and MSN. In addition, John's book, Systematic Selling, is on Amazon's top 100 list.
I've been in the selling trenches, which means I do what you do, for almost 25 years now. And I've worked as a salesperson in the field, meaning I've had to make phone calls and I've had to go out and meet with people one-on-one. I've had to set appointments. I've had to do presentations in front of both individuals as well as groups. And so I've had an opportunity to demonstrate my selling skills. I've fallen flat many, many times. In fact, most of the lessons I've learned in my life are as a result of falling completely flat and failing. And so what I've done is I've tried to do is to take those experiences where maybe you have a hurdle and you weren't able to overcome it, to be able to overcome those things. And in sales, and I'm sure you all can all relate to this, it's a matter of taking those challenges, or taking those hurdles, and continuing to persist and have tenacity and persistence in order to overcome them. And because the reality is you're going to have setbacks. That's just part of sales. And you're going to have quarters that maybe don't look as good, or months that don't look as good. And that's reality. And so we learn from those things. You know, we learn from them. We take something from them, and then we continue to move on. So I've had an opportunity to both work in the sales management arena as well as a sales coach. And now, for the last 10 years, this is what I've been doing, talking with and working with salespeople. I have a chance to go out in the field a lot with salespeople and actually observe their skills. And so I've seen a lot of exceptional selling skills demonstrated. So I get to sometimes be a fly on the wall and just observe, you know, and just kind of watch them and see how they do. And I've seen some very, very good sales professionals. For the attributes of a consultative salesperson, because when you're talking about connecting and building trust, one of the fastest ways to do that is to conduct yourself more like a consultant than a vendor. And when you talk about consultant, we're talking about these things right here. We're talking about being a trusted advisor and an expert. We're talking about bringing a level of expertise to the customer or the client that sets you apart from the competition and differentiates you from being a vendor. So what we're doing in essence, we're saying, I want to partner with you. I have specialization and expertise to bring. Now, we're not obviously going to say that. You're not going to stand there and go, you know, I am an expert. You know, I'm a partner. Obviously, we're not going to say that. We're going to demonstrate that. We're going to show them in the things that we do. So what we do is we develop a mindset as a consultant. And in fact, if you want to move from a vendor mentality to a consultant mentality, it starts between the ears. It really does. It starts with a mindset to go out and say, I'm going to be a trusted advisor, expert, specialist, and partner, not a slinger of goods as a supplier or vendor. First of all, let me say this. We're actually going to introduce a selling process, a 5-step method that you go through that makes logical sense. And you go through the steps, and each of the steps kind of builds on the next one. So it's a system almost that you can go through. Now the nice thing about this is you can integrate it into your own culture, your own world, your own day-to-day stuff that you do. And so the skills that you're going to see, or the steps you're going to see, are very transferable. Now here's what I get a lot of times. People go, well, that's a neat step-by-step thing. It's a 5-step selling model, and that's all clever. And they think, you know, do I have to go through all the steps? And the answer is no, you don't have to go through all the steps. You can skip them. For example, you know, one of the first steps that we have on here is the plan and prepare step. Well, that's where you kind of have a game plan in terms of what you're going to do in your selling process, right? What you're going to do in terms of preparing for the sale, okay? Well, you don't have to do that, but it's a good idea to do it because we've discovered there's a one-to-one relationship between how well we plan and our ultimate results. So you sit down and you map out I don't know what it is, daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, I don't know what your plan looks like, but it's something that sits down and says, okay, I'm going to sell X number of dollars every year, okay, over a 12-month period. And I don't know what that number might be. Let me just pick a number out of the sky. I'm going to use a ridiculous number here, okay? But I'm going to use the word $1 million just because it's easy to work with, right? So every quarter, I have to sell how much? If my annual goal is $1 million, what's my quarterly? $250,000, $250, all right? So $250,000 each month, roughly $85,000. Will you give me that every month? 80, okay. So you break that down, you say, all right, in order for me to sell $1 million a year, here's what I have to do each and every week, and every month, and every quarter. You just break it down. And what happens is you identify those activities that are critical in order for you to reach your goal. So you sit down, and maybe you sit down with an associate, maybe your supervisor, the owner of your company, whoever it might be, and you sit down and say, okay, I want to sell $1 million. What are some of the steps I have to take to do that? And you sit down and kind of map out a plan. You actually come up with a step-by-step tactical plan. This is, all right, here's what we need to do. And usually it says you need to contact X number of customers every single week, every single month. Or if you're maybe perhaps looking to add new fire departments you haven't worked with in a while, or maybe ones that maybe fell to the wayside, you say, okay, I want to contact X number every single month. And you write that number down. And then you map it out every week, and map your week out and say, okay, I got to contact 3 to 5 folks every week. And then what happens is those activities ultimately lead to $1 million, kind of working backwards. The second step in our process is the connect step. Now, the connect step is basically your relationship or your rapport that you build with your customers. It's also the trust element. How many of you agree that in order for you to build your business, you have to A, have a good relationship, and B, build trust? How many of you believe that? Well, that's a rhetorical question, right? Of course that's the answer to that is yes. And what we've discovered is the salesperson with the best rapport, meaning the best, we'll use that word, connection, and the highest level of trust ultimately wins the business at the end of the day. Because what happens is, here's what buyers think. The buyers think, they think, well, they all have great products. Scott's got great products, and Jose's got great products. It looks good on Facebook. But that Neil, that guy delivers every time. In fact, if I ever need to get a hold of Curtis, I know all I have to do is pick up the phone. And in fact, what Guy has done is demonstrated consistency and persistency, and if there's an issue, Ed's he's on the spot. Now, one of the ways to align is to gain an understanding of what type of personality they have. And whenever I go over this section, I often get the question, now, why would you go over that in sales? Why is that so important? Well, here's why it's important. Would you all agree that if you can have a better understanding of your customer, that you'd probably be able to be more effective with them? Well, sure. So what this section is about, it's about understanding how your customer is wired. It's about taking a look at your customer and trying to define what makes them tick. How are they wired? And there's been all sorts of sociological and psychological studies on this. I don't want to bore you with it. But what we're going to do is we're going to focus basically and make it real simple on 4 simple temperament styles or personality styles that we'll take a look at. And again, the reason this is so critical is that if we can understand the temperament style, the personality style that our customers have, would you agree that it's going to enable us to relate better? We're looking to relate more effectively, and this will enable us to do that. So understanding their style will give us that knowledge in order to be able to go about doing that. Now, conversely, the other thing too is to keep in mind that if you understand your selling style or your temperament, it's also going to help you to understand your level of communication and your style. For example, let's take you for example. Let's say that you are and we'll get to the animals in a minute, but let's just say you're the prototypical lion, type A, intense, driven, high ambition type person, right? Let's say you're one of those. Your selling style is going to be that way. Did you know that? So you're going to come across as more intense, okay? For our purposes today, I'll be using 4 animals. Let me take a moment and go over those 4 animals. It's in your worksheet. But before I do that, on 37, a couple of facts about personality styles before I get into these is the first thing is that identifying your customer's temperament style will enable you ultimately, number 1, to connect with them. You're looking for ways and means to connect, and this is one of the fastest ways to do it. The second reason that this is so critical and important is because it's the best way to ultimately get aligned, to get on their wavelength, to understand them, to know where they're coming from, and to connect with them. And then the third advantage or reasoning behind this study, and the reason we talk about it, is that because ultimately, and this is key, put a star next to it, whatever, it ultimately determines how you approach them. Because would you all agree that every customer cannot be approached the same way? They can't be. And yet we all have a tendency to do that. We go over the same presentation, we go over the same approach, we use the same temperament, when really each particular person requires a different approach.
Call today for more information about booking John Naples for your next event. 1-800-803-8778 or john@encoreconsulting.net.